My 15-year-old daughter spent the night sleeping on a park bench after my parents falsely accused her of stealing. When I came back from my trip, I showed them this. My dad turned pale. My mom went completely silent. My name's Rachel Porter. I'm 38 years old. Before I tell you everything that happened, tell me where you're listening from in the comments. Subscribe to the channel and switch on notifications. And to help this channel grow, please hit the like button on this video. The plane landed with a gentle bump that barely registered through my exhaustion. I'd been flying for 14 hours, but my heart was sprinting, fueled by coffee and the sharp, clean thrill of victory. Tucked into my bag was a signed contract worth $1.8 million. It was the kind of deal that changes a career, but all I could think about was changing my family's life. I powered on my phone as we taxied to the gate, my mind already rehearsing the surprise. 6 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Dad, 2 more from Brooke, my sister. My thumb froze when I saw the last one. A single call from Lily, my 15-year-old daughter, at 2:11 in the morning. A cold dread washed over me, erasing the triumph of the contract. I hit her number and she answered on the second ring, her voice a reedy whisper. Mom, Lily, honey, what's wrong? Where are you? I'm on a bench near school. She was trying to sound calm, but I could hear the shiver in her words, the chattering of her teeth against the phone. It's cold. A bench. Why aren't you at Grandma and Grandpa's? There was a long pause, then a broken sob. They think I stole something, Grandpa's stamps. They wouldn't listen to me. They just kept saying I did it, and then Mom just shut my door. The image was so clear it hurt. My parents, June and Walter, with their rigid sense of order, their belief that a story once told must be true. I could almost smell the lemon polish sheen on their porch, a scent that always meant everything was perfect on the surface, no matter what was rotting underneath. Lily's soft voice cut through my memory. I couldn't breathe in there anymore, Mom. The familiar click of my pen against my tablet case echoed in the quiet rental car. 3 slow, deliberate taps. It was a habit I'd developed years ago, a physical signal to myself to stop arguing and start acting. Okay, baby, don't move, I'm 13 minutes away. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, my voice was even, but my mind was a triage unit sorting through the damage. I sent a quick text to Brooke. I have Lily, don't call her. No reply. The sky was the color of bruised paper, a flat, pre-dawn gray. My goal was simple, protect my daughter. The obstacle was just as simple. A house that had taught me from birth that truth was inconvenient, a messy interruption to a story they preferred. I parked under the sputtering orange light of a dead street lamp. The park was deserted, a collection of dark shapes against the fading night. I saw her then, tucked under a blue metal bench near the swings, trying to make herself small. She had her sleeves pulled down over her fingers, her thin jacket zipped up to her chin. The sight of her, my bright, funny girl, huddled against the cold metal, broke something open in my chest. I didn't call out. I just walked over, took off my warm coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked up, her face pale and smudged with dirt. I put a bottle of water I'd warmed with the car heater into her hands. She didn't speak for 2 full minutes, just clutched the bottle and shivered. I sat on the gritty edge of the bench, the surface tacky with old gum, and breathed through my nose, trying to steady us both. The cold had stiffened her dark hair and her eyes were wide and exhausted. Do you want to go home or our place? I asked quietly. Our place, she whispered, not lifting her head. A city bus hissed by on the street and she flinched, a small, sharp movement that told me how thin her patience was, how thick and endless the night must have felt. To anchor her, I made a promise. This weekend, we're having pancakes and going to bookstores, the good one with the comfy chairs. It was a promise of small, good things I could deliver, a rope to pull her back to safety. She nodded, a tiny dip of her chin. We're not arguing with anyone today, I told her, my voice firm but gentle. We're just getting your backpack and your things and then we're leaving. She nodded again and this time she looked at me. They said I lied, she whispered. Grandpa said it right at the table in front of everyone. I didn't comment on their cruelty, not yet. I just noted the time, 6:18 in the morning, and tapped my pen 3 times against my phone case. I filed away the feeling of her small, cold hand in mine, the sight of her huddled on that bench. It was fuel. I texted Mom, picking up Lily's things at 7, do not wake her. I didn't wait for a reply. I started the engine, and the quiet hum of the car felt like the first step toward reclaiming my daughter's peace. At 7:03, I walked up the 3 steps to their perfect porch. The white railings were freshly painted, the boards didn't squeak, and that cloying smell of lemon polish hung in the air. The door opened before I could knock. Mom stood there, her face a mask of smooth composure, her voice the calm, measured tone she always used when she'd already chosen a side and it wasn't mine. "Rachel," she said, as if I'd just popped over for coffee. Behind her, I could see Dad at the kitchen counter. His prized stamp binder was open, a monument to his hobby. Even from the doorway, I could see the empty plastic pocket where a set of 6 rare stamps used to be. The album radiated a scent of pride that was stronger than the coffee brewing on the counter. "I'm here for Lily's backpack and her laptop charger," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Nothing else. No accusations, no questions." "We need to talk about Lily's behavior," Mom began, her tone implying that a child sleeping on a park bench was a behavioral issue, not a crisis of safety. I walked past her, past the perfectly arranged fruit bowl on the hall table, past the grandfather clock that always ran 2 minutes fast. I went straight to the guest room where Lily kept a few things for her sleepovers. Her backpack was under the window, exactly where she'd left it. I grabbed it, zipped it shut, and did a quick mental checklist: charger, inhaler, the binder with her history homework, all there. As I turned to leave, the neighbor's doorbell chimed, 2 soft, musical tones announcing a delivery. The sound echoed in the quiet house. It was a simple, ordinary sound, but in that moment it felt like a punctuation mark. I decided then that it would be the note I'd end on. I didn't argue. I didn't explain why her daughter had fled in the middle of the night. I refused to be drawn into their theater of blame and denial. I walked back to the front door, holding the line that kept my daughter safe. I left without another word, without a backward glance, the heavy backpack a tangible piece of Lily I was rescuing from that house. In the trunk of my car, beneath a blanket, sat a folder marked home. Inside was a cashier's check for $27,400. It was the exact amount needed to cover my parents' overdue mortgage payments. Next to it was a printed itinerary for an $8,500 anniversary trip to Italy I'd booked for them. The dates were highlighted, the cabin upgrade on the cruise ship was circled in red pen. I had imagined a family meeting this weekend. I'd celebrate the new contract, then present them with these gifts, a way to help stabilize their finances and maybe, just maybe, set some gentle, healthy boundaries around their relationship with Lily. But the accusation, the coldness, the simple fact that they'd let my daughter walk out into the night rather than believe her, dissolved that plan completely. Their behavior had cost them something they didn't even know they almost had. I wasn't going to tell them about the money. Rewards don't teach integrity, and you don't owe transparency to people who use it as a weapon. I pulled over a few blocks away, opened the trunk, and moved the home folder. I tucked it under the spare tire, out of sight. I'd decide later who, if anyone, deserved that kind of generosity. I sent a quick text to Marco, my assistant, moved Monday call, family emergency. Keep the client warm. His reply was immediate: got it, take care of Lily. With that small task done, I assigned myself a new, narrow mission for the next 48 hours. First, identify who actually sold the stamps. Second, retrieve them. And third, clear my daughter's name, not with arguments but with undeniable proof. I opened my tablet and created a new, encrypted folder. I labeled it Lily Proof. It was empty now, but it wouldn't be for long. I decided then that the reckoning, when it came, would be public and calm. Their denial was loud and messy. My answer would be quiet and exact. Back at our apartment, I found Lily curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, still wearing my coat. I made her hot tea with honey and put 2 more blankets over her. I gave her my weighted eye mask, and within minutes she was finally asleep, her breathing deep and even. Her exhaustion was a physical presence in the room. While she slept, I drove back to my parents' house. I told myself it was to get her math book, which I'd forgotten. The book was on the hallway shelf, an easy excuse. The door was unlocked. I slipped in, grabbed the textbook, and on my way out I used my phone to take 3 quick, clear photographs of the empty 6-stamp pocket in Dad's binder, which was still sitting open on the kitchen counter. No words were exchanged. I was in and out in less than a minute. Back home, I sat at my own kitchen table and let logic take over. Whoever stole rare stamps would try to sell them. They wouldn't sit on them. A professional would go to an auction house, but a kid would want quick cash. I listed 3 local antique shops and 1 pawn spot I'd only use as a last resort. Pawn shops kept meticulous records, and I didn't want to involve the police if I could avoid it. I circled the name of the one antique shop that opened at 9 in the morning, most opened at 10 or 11. A morning seller is often a desperate seller. I decided I'd be there at 9:02 with a photo of the missing stamps. I took a clean white envelope from my desk and put it in my purse. It was for receipts. Paper proof mattered in my parents' house. It was tangible, something they couldn't dismiss as emotion or drama. I texted Brooke one more time. When Tyler wakes up, tell him to leave Lily alone today. Tyler was my nephew, Brooke's 14-year-old son. Still, no reply from my sister. Her silence was starting to feel like an answer. I left my phone on loud right next to the couch where Lily was sleeping. On a notepad beside it, I wrote, "No one gets in without me. Door stays locked. Love you." I set the next scene in my head: a shop counter, a simple story, a paper receipt, and I suspected a face I would recognize. I refused to let what happened to me as a child, the constant, casual blame for things my sister had done, replay in my daughter's life. I drove toward 9 in the morning with my jaw unclenched and my plan already in motion. I went back to the house at 10:10 in the morning to collect the rest of Lily's things. Her running shoes were by the back door, her art folder was propped against the desk in the guest room, her toothbrush was still in the holder in the bathroom. I was a quiet whirlwind of efficiency, gathering the scattered pieces of my daughter's life. Mom met me in the hallway. She had a tissue twisted in her hand and a speech on her lips that I'd been hearing in various forms since I was 10 years old. "We can't help you, Rachel, if you won't admit what your daughter did," she said, her voice dripping with practiced concern. She was framing this as my failure, my refusal to see the truth. I stopped packing and looked at her. "Don't speak to Lily again until I call you," I said. It was one sentence delivered without heat. Just then, Dad appeared from his office holding the open stamp binder like it was a sacred text. He pointed a finger at the empty pocket. "This is a serious loss, Rachel. So is a child sleeping outside because you preferred a story to a fact," I replied, my voice just as quiet as his. As I turned to leave, I saw the spare key to their house hanging on a hook by the door. It was the one I used for emergencies. Without thinking, I reached out, took it off the hook, and slipped it into my pocket. I was done with quiet, stealthy visits. From now on, they would let me in. My first tactic, be brief, be courteous, was only half working. They weren't yelling, but they weren't hearing a single word I said that didn't confirm the story they'd already written. I left with Lily's duffel bag slung over my shoulder, offering no information about where I was going or when they might hear from me again. I recognized the old, familiar ache in my chest, the feeling of being misunderstood on purpose. I labeled it, filed it away, and kept moving. Mom followed me to the door, trying the old shuffle. "We love Lily, of course we do," she said, her voice softening into a manipulative purr. "But she has to learn to face consequences." Dad, standing behind her, added a new, grandiose line to their script. "Walter Porter doesn't tolerate thieves in his house," he announced, talking about himself in the third person like he was a monument. "Consequences require proof," I said, turning back at the doorway. "You don't have any." Mom just shook her head slowly, polishing the sentence she'd chosen as her truth. "She lied, Rachel." She looked me right in the eye and lied. I have to go, I said, because to stay and argue was to walk into their trap. They win if I stay in the room, if I let them exhaust me with their circular logic. As I stepped onto the porch, Dad's voice followed me. I've already let a few people at the club know we're handling it. My blood went cold. Handling it meant he was spreading the rumor. His stamp club was his whole social world, a network of gossipy old men who would chew on this story for weeks. I added a new item to my mental list: correct the story at his club, publicly if I had to. I walked away with my spine straight, not because I felt calm, but because I knew Lily might be watching from the window of my car. My tactic of asking for basic fairness had failed completely. I marked it in my head. The next tactics would have to be proof and leverage. As I closed the car door, I tapped my pen against the steering wheel, 3 slow, firm taps. Then I shut their perfect, lemon-polished world out. Back at our apartment, Lily was still sleeping hard. The exhaustion had taken her down completely. I didn't wake her. Instead, I lined up what I had on the kitchen table. The photos of the missing stamps from Dad's binder, a timeline of the calls, the names of everyone who was in the house last night. I wrote a simple flowchart on a legal pad: who had access, who benefits, who has the nerve. Every arrow I drew pointed to one person. Tyler, my nephew, had Dad's gushing good grandson access. He could wander in and out of the office, no questions asked. He also had a history of borrowing things: a gaming console, $50 from his mom's purse that were never returned. Brooke, his mother, had blind spots the size of football fields when it came to her son. She's always been the golden child, the one who was believed without question. I listed the places a 14-year-old might go to sell stolen goods. Antique shops felt a little intimidating. Pawn shops felt more exciting, like something from a movie. But I knew kids his age. They avoid paperwork whenever they can. They want fast, untraceable cash. I printed the images of the stamps on glossy photo paper. I wanted any shop owner I spoke to see exactly what I was looking for. I slid my clean white envelope into my purse, ready for a receipt. I wrote my initials, RP, along the flap. Then I opened my wallet and tucked one of Lily's baby photos into the front slot. It was my anchor. I was doing this for her, not to win an argument or score a point. I set an alarm on my car's dashboard clock to vibrate at 8:50 the next morning. I would not miss that 9 o'clock opening. At the top of my notepad, I wrote a heading for the day: no surprises. I would control every variable I possibly could. I decided to try one more path of reason before storming the antique shops. I sent a text to the family group chat, the one with me, Mom, Dad, and Brooke. Please don't discuss the stamp situation outside the family until we have all the facts. I was asking for the bare minimum of discretion. 5 minutes later, Brooke replied, Dad had to tell the club they're his friends, they were worried about him. It was a classic deflection, reframing gossip as concern, but the text was also proof. The rumor wasn't just starting. It was already out, spreading like fertilizer on the club's well-manicured lawns. I called Dad directly. Pause the club talk, I said, no preamble. Just wait until I can bring you some information tomorrow. His response was immediate and sanctimonious. The truth doesn't need time, Rachel. That single sentence sealed it. Reason would never work here. They weren't interested in the truth, they were interested in their version of it. I stopped asking for pauses. I started gathering my proof on my terms. This came at a small cost. I had a client call I was looking forward to, but I canceled it, sending a clean, professional note: family emergency. I will be back in touch before Friday. I didn't tell Lily about any of this. She needed to sleep without the weight of new problems. I pulled the home folder out from under the spare tire in my trunk and set it on my desk next to my new Lily proof folder. The juxtaposition was stark. It reminded me what generosity could do when it was aimed at the right people and what happened when it wasn't. My options had narrowed to a single path. There would be no apology from them without overwhelming, undeniable pressure. I set a new timer in my head: Sunday lunch, 1 o'clock. I would bring the truth to the very table they used as a stage for their accusations. With my path forward now clear, I made a few decisions. I set 3 rules for myself for the coming days: do not argue, do not bluff, do not delay. Every action had to be direct and based on evidence. Mom had already planned a family lunch for Sunday. She texted to ask if we were still coming. I replied, "Yes, we'll be there." I had just turned their routine family gathering into my chosen arena. I sent a private text to Brooke. "We need to talk about Tyler tomorrow, 10:30 in the morning, my place or yours." I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear as she typed, erased, and typed again. Finally, a single word came back. "Here." I began prepping a simple script for my conversation with her. I would show her the proof I was about to acquire. I would accept repayment for the stamps. I would insist that she protect Lily from any family backlash. The focus had to remain on the facts, not on feelings or old resentments. I added a new name to my contact list, Henry Abbott, the Stamp Club president. If Dad wouldn't retract his story, I would provide Henry with a packet of information so he could do it for him. I wrote down a small, clear boundary and saved it in my phone's notes. "If you call Lily a thief again, you lose access to us." It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of fact, and I would enforce it. I set my alarm for 7:30 and went to sleep on the couch in the living room. I wanted to be the first thing Lily saw when she woke up. The first crisis, the long night on the bench, was over. Now, a narrow, bright path lay ahead of me: gather the proof, stage the truth, and stop funding the system of lies that kept this toxic pattern alive. I put one hand on my tablet, charging on the end table, and laid the other on my daughter's shoulder as she slept. The house was finally quiet. Tomorrow would not be. The next morning, I woke Lily with a plate of pancakes and a small bowl of orange slices. She ate slowly without talking, and I counted it as a win. While she showered, I called Aunt Teresa, my aunt, and put her on speaker. Her voice was soft and steady, a calm port in my family's storm. She promised Lily a movie night soon, and I could hear the small smile in Lily's voice as she agreed. As soon as Lily was settled, I headed out. The bell on the door of the antique shop chimed once as I entered at exactly 9:02 in the morning. The shop smelled of old paper and furniture polish. I introduced myself to Arthur Blake, the owner, a man with kind eyes and a neatly trimmed beard. I didn't waste time. I slid the glossy photos of the 6 missing stamps across the glass display case. "These went missing from my dad's collection 2 nights ago," I said. "I was wondering if anyone tried to sell them to you." Arthur picked up the photos and studied them for a moment. He nodded slowly. "Yep. A kid came in yesterday afternoon, tall, thin, said they were from his great-granddad's garage cleanout." He turned to his computer monitor, clicked a few times, and then swiveled the screen toward me. "Here's the security clip. Timestamp says 4:21 p.m. I didn't need to see the boy's face. I knew that jacket. It was navy blue with a single, wide white stripe down the sleeve. It was Tyler's. He wore it in half the photos Brooke posted online." "Did you buy them?" I asked, my voice steady. "I did," Arthur said. "Paid $500 in cash. I logged them as a 6-stamp lot. If they're yours, I can sell them back to you at cost." "I don't want any trouble. I'll take them now," I said. I opened my white envelope and laid 5 crisp $100 bills on the glass counter. It felt good to use cash to make the transaction clean and final. Arthur printed a receipt without me having to ask. It listed the item as 6-stamp lot with the date, the time, and the amount. "Can you sign this for me?" I asked. He did, with a firm, clear signature. He then let me record the security clip on my phone as it played on his monitor. The image was grainy but clear enough to identify Tyler's build and that unmistakable jacket. "If you need me to confirm this for a family discussion, I can," Arthur offered, "but I won't get involved with any police matters." "I'm not asking you to," I assured him. "This is a family matter." I took a quick photo of the shop's front window and another of Arthur's business card. Both went straight into my Lily proof folder on my tablet. I asked him to hold the stamps for just 5 minutes while I made a call. He agreed, propping the small box near his register. I stepped outside into the cool morning air and texted Brooke. I have the stamps. We need to talk now. Her reply was instant. Come over. I went back inside, paid Arthur, and he wrapped the small box in tissue paper and tape. It felt heavier than 6 small squares of paper should. I thanked him for being decent and not defensive. Not everyone chooses to be helpful first. I now had the stamps, the receipt, and the video clip. My progress was tangible, but it came with a new vulnerability. The moment I said Tyler's name out loud to my sister, this would stop being an investigation and start being a family war. I put the box into my tote bag and drove toward Brooke's sprawling estate-style subdivision with more facts than feelings. Brooke met me at her front door. She was wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie, and her face was already pale. She led me to her kitchen with its gleaming marble island. I didn't say a word. I just took out the small box Arthur had wrapped for me and slid it across the cold stone surface. Her face crumpled. He sold them to Arthur Blake, I said, keeping my tone soft and sober. Here's the receipt from when I bought them back, and here's the security clip. I played the short video on my phone. He hasn't confessed, she whispered, but her eyes darted toward the hallway that led to Tyler's room. Did you notice anything new in the last day or two? I asked gently. Any unusual purchases? She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. He had $400 in cash folded up in a sock in his laundry basket. And there's a brand new virtual reality headset in his room. It cost $399 before tax. She pulled out her phone and showed me the order confirmation she'd found in his email. She hadn't bought it for him. The timeline of the purchase fit perfectly. I asked for the $500 to repay myself for what I'd given Arthur. She transferred it to me immediately from her banking app with a quiet, choked, "I'm so sorry, Rachel." Just then, Tyler peeked around the corner from the hallway. He was wearing the navy jacket with the white stripe. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second before he vanished back down the hall. I looked back at Brooke. I need you to protect Lily now, I said. This is the most important part. No whispering about this at school, no family spin that makes this somehow her fault for being in the house. She nodded through her tears. She knew. Then she asked the question that revealed the true heart of our family's problem. Can we handle this without telling Dad? No, Brooke, I said. We can't. I left her there with the truth sitting on her perfect marble island, a small, heavy box containing more than just stamps. I had her promise that she wouldn't let her son be humiliated, but I left with my own promise to myself. I would not allow one more lie to take root in this family. On my drive home, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from a neighbor, a woman I was friendly with from our old neighborhood. She'd sent me a screenshot from a private neighborhood social media app. The post was from one of my dad's friends. It read, "So sad to hear about Walter Porter's granddaughter and the unfortunate incident with his stamps. Keeping the family in our thoughts." The rumor had escaped the house and the club. It was now in the digital streets, spreading to people who knew Lily, who saw her every day. I saved the screenshot directly into my proof folder. Public harm requires a public repair. The pressure was suddenly much higher. Lily's friends at school could hear this. Her trust in me, in my ability to fix this, depended on how fast and how thoroughly I could correct the narrative. I sent a text to Brooke. Tyler needs to confess everything to you, and then he needs to write an apology to Lily. I won't wait for it to be perfect before I clear her name. Then, I opened my email and composed a message to Henry Abbott, the president of Dad's Stamp Club. The subject line was clear: correction for tonight's meeting. I attached a digital copy of the receipt, a still frame from the security footage showing the jacket, and a short, simple statement. Please read this in full at tonight's meeting, I wrote. Lily Porter did not steal any stamps. A minor in the family sold them without permission. I recovered them at 9:15 this morning. The matter is resolved. I deliberately left Tyler's name out of it. Henry's reply came in less than 10 minutes. Understood, Rachel, I will read it verbatim. I thanked him and added one more instruction. Please do not name the minor involved. The stakes were sharpening. If Dad doubled down on his story after Henry read my correction, I knew what my next move would have to be. I would cut the financial support that was quietly keeping their lights on. I arrived home and found Lily on the couch watching a movie. I sat down next to her and told her two simple sentences. I have the stamps. You did nothing wrong. She exhaled, a long, slow breath like she'd been holding it underwater for days. I spent the next hour organizing my evidence. I airdropped everything from my phone to my tablet, the shop receipt, the security clip, the neighbor's screenshot, and put it all into the Lily proof folder. I created a single one-page document, a PDF timeline that laid out the facts in cold, hard print. Wednesday, 4:21 p.m., stamps sold. Wednesday night, Lily accused. Thursday, 9:02 a.m., stamps recovered. I added a still frame of Tyler's jacket from the footage and wrote a small annotation, navy plus white stripe, same as jacket in recent family photos. Then I remembered something. I opened Tyler's public Instagram profile. Last night he'd posted a quick story, a 1-second flash of a shopping bag with the letters VR clearly visible on the side. It was gone now, but I'd seen it. I checked my own phone's cache. I'd seen it, so a ghost of it was there. I found it and screen recorded it. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I titled the entire collection on my tablet Sunday Lunch. Play this first and set it as the home screen wallpaper. There would be no fumbling, no searching, just one tap. I took the 6 recovered stamps and placed them in a clear, hard plastic sleeve. I sealed it with a piece of tape and signed my initials across the seal. This was evidence, and it would be treated as such. I then typed up a 1-page letter titled Boundaries. It listed in simple bullet points what was going to change, effective immediately, and what would be required for any future contact with Lily. I printed 2 copies. My script for Sunday Lunch was simple: press play, pass the sleeve of stamps, state my terms, and leave. No raised voices, no interruptions. The discussion would be over when the video ended. At 6:10 that evening, an email from Henry Abbott landed in my inbox. Read your correction to the entire club tonight, he wrote. The members were appreciative. No questions were allowed during the reading. He had attached a photo he'd taken from the podium showing my printed statement sitting on the lectern. I saved the photo to my folder. A public wrong had been publicly righted. I texted Dad. Henry read my correction at the club. Please do not repeat the false story about Lily. His reply was swift and dripping with indignation. You embarrassed me, I typed back. You embarrassed yourself. Then I put my phone on silent. No more messages tonight. A few minutes later, Lily came into the kitchen and showed me her phone. There were 3 texts from classmates. Are you okay? Heard something weird is going on. Is it true? My mom heard something from her book club. Call me. The rumor had taken on a life of its own. I advised her to reply with a single, consistent line. It's not true. Everything's fine. I then sent a quick, confidential email to Lily's guidance counselor, a kind woman named Miss Green. A false rumor about Lily was circulating but has been corrected. She is safe. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case you notice any teasing. I trusted Miss Green to be discreet and protective. My damage control was now public and documented. Now it was time for the hardest part. I logged into my online banking portal. For the last 3 years, I'd been sending my parents $1,250 a month, a quiet supplement to help with their mortgage, utilities, and groceries. They never acknowledged it, but I knew they relied on it. I found the recurring transfer and clicked End Series. Next, I went to my cell phone provider's website. Mom, Dad, and Brooke were all on my family plan, a bill of $189 I paid every month. I scheduled their lines to be removed from my account effective midnight after Sunday lunch. Finally, I thought of the $6,000 I'd promised Brooke I'd set aside for her older child's community college deposit next fall. I went to my savings accounts and deleted the transfer I'd scheduled. I would explain it to her privately after Sunday. I took the $8,500 I'd earmarked for their anniversary trip and moved it into a new savings account. I labeled it, Teresa, thank you. I sent myself a calendar reminder for Monday morning, call travel agent, price Mediterranean cruise for Aunt Teresa, budget $9,800. I screenshotted each canceled payment and printed the confirmations. I filed them in a folder behind my boundaries letter. A cold knot formed in my stomach. This didn't feel good or triumphant. It felt necessary. I added one more line to the letter. Financial help is conditional on respect and protection for Lily. If either is missing, all support will stop. I looked at the files on my desk. The bridge to the way things were was burning. The ticking clock was now set. Sunday lunch at 1 o'clock would be the stage. The menu was always the same: roast chicken, Brooks green salad, and Dad's puffed-up pride. I sent a final text to the family group chat. See you all Sunday at 1. I'm bringing something important that will resolve the stamp situation for good. Mom's reply was almost instant. Please be respectful, Rachel. I will be precise, I wrote back. I put my tablet on Do Not Disturb, allowing calls only from Lily and Aunt Teresa. I would not get dragged into any last-minute side arguments or manipulative phone calls. I texted Arthur Blake a quick question. If needed, can I cite your name and your receipt? He replied, yes, the receipt speaks for itself. My preparations were almost complete. I found a pack of index cards and wrote out place cards with everyone's names. This wasn't about being fancy, it was about controlling the room. I would sit directly opposite Dad with Lily beside me. Brooke would sit next to Dad and Mom would be at the end of the table. I even packed a small bottle of water for Tyler. I wasn't there to punish a child, I was there to protect mine. On a small sticky note, I wrote a reminder to myself and stuck it to the inside of my tote bag. Don't explain. Show. The first hard reveal, the proof of Tyler's guilt, had landed. Now the path was set. The pivot was to a calm, public, and final correction of the record. I finally slept for 5 straight hours and dreamed of chiming doorbells and empty pockets. On Friday morning, I called Aunt Teresa and told her everything, from finding Lily on the bench to the signed receipt from Arthur Blake. She listened without interrupting, her silence a comforting presence on the other end of the line. When I was done, she said, I believe you, Rachel, I always have. Then she asked me to come over. There's something in a shoebox in my closet I think you need to see. I dropped by her small, sunny apartment an hour later. She handed me an old, faded photograph. It was of my sister, Brooke, at about 10 years old. She was in our childhood backyard, smiling for the camera, and on her wrist was our mother's delicate silver bracelet. The clasp on the bracelet was clearly broken. Teresa then handed me a tiny manila envelope. Inside was the other half of the broken clasp. On the envelope in Teresa's tidy script were 2 words. Brooke's room, that was the day June blamed you for breaking it, Teresa said softly. You cried for hours. I found this piece of the clasp under Brooke's bed later that night. I kept it just in case. The memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. The shouting, the grounding, the feeling of being utterly powerless as my mother refused to believe me. This wasn't about a set of stamps. This was about a decades-long pattern. Brooke does and I pay. My entire plan shifted on its axis. Teresa put her hand on mine. Protect your girl, she said, her eyes serious. You won't get any thanks for it from them, but you'll have her and you'll have yourself. I scanned the photo and the envelope with my phone. I wouldn't use them at the lunch unless I was directly called a liar, but I needed them for myself. They were proof that I wasn't imagining the pattern. I added a new sentence to my boundaries letter. This pattern of blame ends now. I hugged Teresa, a fierce, grateful hug. As I left, she smiled. Spend your gifts where they grow, Rachel. Driving home, I rewrote my goal. My mission was no longer to convince my parents of the truth. It was to set conditions that would protect Lily whether they ever agreed with me or not. I stopped imagining a tearful apology from Mom and started planning for their inevitable silence and spin. My measure of success was not whether Dad admitted he was wrong. It was whether Lily could sleep through the night again like a child who felt safe in the world. I revised my script for Sunday, removing any questions. This wasn't a debate, it was a presentation of facts. I set a bright line rule for myself. If anyone at that table raised their voice at Lily, we would stand up and leave immediately, no matter what was happening. I planned my tone. Not angry, not sarcastic, just clear and steady, the voice of a chief executive officer stating the new terms of a contract. I practiced the words out loud in my car. Any future contact with us requires a written apology to Lily and a signed agreement never to single her out again. I rehearsed counting to 5 in my head between sentences. Silence would be my ally. I texted Lily a simple message, "Sunday is for you, you don't have to say a single word." She replied with a single red heart emoji. I printed and signed the letters that morning with a steady hand. Each envelope held a single page, the spelled-out boundaries, the conditions for contact, and the simple statement that financial help required protection for Lily. I sealed them, wrote Mom, Dad, and Brooke on the front in block letters, and felt the small, awful finality of folding those pages into envelopes. It was a physical thing I could touch, and that made it real in a way that thinking never had. I went online and ended the recurring transfer that had become invisible to me and essential to them. I didn't sit and draft complicated bank speak. I clicked through a few confirmation screens and watched the orange progress bars slide shut on the monthly payment of $1,250. I removed their names from my phone account in 2 quick steps, clicking remove and then confirm until the screen showed the new total without their numbers. I canceled the small college fund I'd earmarked for Brooke's oldest. I made a note to speak to her after lunch face-to-face because some things deserved a soft voice even when the rest of my hands were steady. I moved the anniversary money into a different account and labeled it for Teresa. The new label felt like a tiny ceremony. Teresa, thank you. I scheduled a call with a travel agent for Monday to make the cruise real, to shift the surprise away from a family that used kindness as a bargaining chip to someone who actually deserved it. I transferred the monthly money I'd been sending them into a savings goal labeled Lily First Car. It was an act of replanting. What I'd taken away from one patch of ground, I'd put into another. Each click and confirmation made a small noise in the apartment. The soft chime of an online payment ending, the rustle of paper as I tucked receipts into the folder marked boundaries. The lemon polish scent from the porch I'd left faded in my memory and was replaced by the smell of printer ink and tea. There was a weight in my chest, loss for the rituals and ease I knew I might never get back, and a clarity under it, the math of what had to be done to keep my child safe. I didn't do it for drama. I did it so Lily would never sit on another bench feeling like the family had stacked itself against her. I dropped the spare key to Mom and Dad's house into a drawer and closed it. I left the key there like a statement. The era of easy access was over. I ordered a new phone plan for Lily and me, separate from the family, so her texts and calls would not be routed through lines I controlled that could get weaponized into gossip. I set up automatic alerts on that new plan. An email copy would come to me if any new line was added. It felt like a small, sensible lock. I called Aunt Teresa and told her simply, "I moved the trip to you." Her laugh was astonished and bright. "About time someone recognized the garden," she said. She asked for dates and cabin preferences as if this were the easiest thing in the world. It made me cry a little in the car. Gratitude landed like a hand on my shoulder. I accepted that some things were now irreversible. I might not get Sunday dinners back for a long time. Birthday candles might be blown out without us. Holidays could be colder, quieter. But in their place, I'd seeded safety, money for Lily's car, a plan so I could loosen the belt holding my worry to my ribs, and a trip for the only adult who'd ever stepped between me and a lie. Those costs felt like stepping stones across a river. Each one stung, but together they formed a crossing. With the decisions made, I tightened the timeline like the bands around a package. The club correction had already happened Friday night thanks to Henry, which meant the rumor would meet a public stop before Sunday. I set a Sunday alarm for 12:45 and wrote the hours out loud on an index card. Arrive 12:58, ring at 1 o'clock, press play immediately, return stamps, read terms, leave at 45 minutes. Writing it down made it steady. I set my tablet to do not disturb and allowed calls only from Lily and Teresa. I didn't want any last-minute manipulations or pleas that would distract me from the facts sitting on my screen. I printed the one-page timeline document and made a hard copy of Arthur's receipt. I typed a short note for Henry, thank you, and packed it with the packet I intended to leave, one copy for the club's files. I wrote place cards, simple names, no flourishes. Control of small things would help my voice be heard. I tucked the sealed stamp sleeve into a hard folder and slid the envelope of signed receipts into the inside pocket of my tote so I could present proof without fumbling. I set 3 alarms for Sunday itself. 10 a.m. to check clothes and rehearse my opening line, 11:30 to eat something simple and breathe, 12:30 to leave the house. I practiced my script out loud in the kitchen like a dry read. I'm going to show you something. I bought this back at 9:15. These are the facts. Any contact with us requires a written apology to Lily. Financial support ends unless you agree to protect her. The cadence of it was calm and decisive when I said it into the empty room. It felt like an oath not to them but to my daughter. That afternoon and evening, messages started to arrive like small, sour pebbles thrown against my windows. Mom left 3 voicemails in the space of an hour. The first was syrup thick. We don't want a scene. The second had an edge. You're overreacting. The third was a softness that aimed to shame. Lily needs discipline. I listened to each message twice and then deleted them. Deleting them felt like putting the pebbles back in a pocket, acknowledging the hit but keeping the work of cleaning up where it landed to myself. Dad texted from whatever phone he used for pomp, do not grandstand at lunch. I typed and deleted a dozen responses, then sent the quieted version, I'll be precise. Brooke pinged me privately, please don't say Tyler's name in front of Henry if Dad invites him. I replied, truthfully, Henry already handled it. I won't name a minor, she answered with a string of crying emojis and a short, shaky, I'm scared. Her worry made my hands go colder than the messages did. I sent her a plain, he needs to apologize in writing. Now. A cousin, Jenna, texted a rumor question that needed no answer, heard something about Lily. I gave a one-line truth, not true, stamps recovered. She put a heart in response. That small support felt like a single person in the audience nodding. Then Dad sent me a text meant to hurt. You like to make us look bad. It landed where old things lived, the girl who forever needed to prove her worth. I didn't engage, my fingers hovered over the keyboard, then went still. Silence was a tool now. If I replied, I'd be fighting on their terms. I saved my energy for the table. In the middle of that wave of messages, Aunt Teresa texted me a lemon chicken recipe with a line that made me laugh and cry at the same time. I smiled until my cheeks hurt and kept it in my pocket like a prayer. Small human things mattered when the rest of the world got loud. We lost another safe place that weekend, a small, quiet grief that wasn't about stamps but about comfort. The independent bookstore where Lily and I sprawled on mismatched sofas and drank bad coffee announced on Saturday that it would be closed Sunday for inventory. Reading that message felt like someone had taken away a soft landing. The world kept removing the places where we could breathe, so I made backup plans. I found a diner 2 towns over with booths, blue vinyl, and cherry pie that still tasted like your grandmother's kitchen. I saved the address and told Lily if things go sideways, pie and a booth by the window would be our reward. She smiled and said, promise? I promised. It felt important to give her a visible, small rescue. I asked Mrs. Delgado across the hall to watch the apartment during lunch and let her know hours might need a calm check-in. She said she'd be on the window seat with her knitting and a pot of tea. Her calm face in my mind made the world feel less brittle. I moved our car keys to the hall table by the front door and put my tote by my feet so we could leave without a scene that involved stuffing bags and forgetting a charger. I packed granola bars, a thermos of tea, and a small packet of tissues. I also tucked earplugs into Lily's pocket even though she laughed at me for doing it. Just in case, I said. If anyone gets loud, you plug them in and look at the pie menu. We both laughed, which was enough to make both of us breathe out a measure of the pressure. Small, practical moves kept piling up. I put the copy of Henry's podium photo in my inside coat pocket so I could show a single, calm image if needed. I charged my tablet to full and slipped a power bank into the tote. I packed the white envelope with Arthur's receipt where I could get at it without looking. I moved the stamp sleeve into the hardest part of my bag so it wouldn't bend. Public pressure kept pushing at edges I wanted smooth. At the grocery store on Saturday, Mrs. Beck from Lily's class, coffee in hand, shopping list crumpled, pushed me into a corner of the produce aisle. "So sorry about the stamp thing," she said, like a neighbor offering a casserole. I kept my voice soft and even. "It's resolved. Lily did nothing wrong." She blinked, a small flush of embarrassment. "Of course," she said, and her apology felt like plucking nettles from a fence. A neighbor's teenager posted an oblique, snide comment. "Crazy how people steal from family," with a winky face. I screenshot it and saved it into the folder I would hand around the table if needed. Leaving it unaddressed would let it fester, and I was out of time for letting things rot where they sat. I called Miss Green, Lily's guidance counselor, and asked her to keep an eye out for anything mean or clumsy at school. She promised quietly to step in if she saw a teacher or a student dragging the rumor in like a dog with a stick. All these small exposures felt like one more wind pushing at us, but each one also created a record. Screenshots, emails, receipts, paper, and pixels met the gossip with a different kind of force. Henry's correction had already traveled to the club, the neighbor app, and the inboxes of a few relatives. The whispering started to feel less like thunder and more like a paper that could be folded and filed away. My focus, slowly and stubbornly, stayed on one point: the lunch, the tablet, the sealed stamps, the note that said "protect my daughter or lose her." Everything else was backup noise I had planned for and would not let claim the truth. I laid everything out the night before like a ritual, clothes for Sunday packed and folded on the bed. Lily's soft gray sweater and her sneakers, my easy gray dress, and the flats that didn't sound like an announcement when I walked. I preset the car's GPS to Mom and Dad's address even though I could drive there blind. Ritual keeps the nerves steady. I charged my tablet to 100% and my phone to 95%, tucked a power bank into the tote, and slid the hard-sided folder with the sealed stamp sleeve into the center so nothing could bend it. I put the white envelope with Arthur's receipt in the zip pocket where I could reach without fumbling. I wrote the time plan on a sticky note and stuck it under my phone case. 12:58 arrive, 1 o'clock ring, press play, return stamps, read terms, leave by 45 minutes. Muscle memory would keep me honest if the room tried to drag me off script. I set a timer on my watch for 45 minutes to go off the second my exit window arrived. 45 minutes is long enough to make a public correction and short enough to prevent a long, circular argument. I tucked the index card with my 3 aims, clear Lily, return the stamps, state conditions, into my back pocket so I could touch it if I needed to feel I hadn't forgotten anything. I checked the place cards again, folded them, and slid them into my coat pocket. Controlling the seating would control the line of sight and the energy. I taped a tiny note inside the tote: "Don't explain. Show." Simple commands are easier to follow when your hands are busy. I left earplugs in a small zip bag and shoved them into Lily's pocket with a quiet little note: "If it's loud, use them and look for pie." She laughed and kissed my cheek like she knew we both needed the joke. I moved our car to street parking and faced it away from their driveway for a clean exit. I put extra gas in the tank that afternoon because panic committees love empty tanks. I packed granola bars and a thermos of tea. Nerves get hungry and tea calms my jaw. I printed one more copy of Henry's email with the photo of the podium and tucked that into my inside coat pocket. If things went sideways, I'd show the club's photocopy like a calm referee's call. Saturday evening, breathless and tired from the tiny practicalities, I got a whisper of a call from Brooke. She sounded low and scared, and for a handful of seconds I thought I was about to get a miracle apology. Instead, she said something that tightened every line I'd drawn. Tyler had Grandpa's office key on a ring with a bottle opener. He said he borrowed it from the dish by the door. Her voice flattened when she said it. The details stitched whole paragraphs of the story together. Access was not a lucky open window, it was handed over. Brooke admitted, ashamed, that Dad had told Tyler weeks ago, "You can look at the stamps anytime, just be careful." He'd given him trust and a key like a badge. That piece of information made the theft less like a kid's misstep and more like a lapse in judgment amplified by a pattern. I wrote down the exact words she used as she said them. Having a clean record calmed me. I told Brooke to take the key from Tyler that night and return it to Dad before lunch on Sunday. She hesitated but agreed. She also said, with a voice that wanted to soften the blow, "Don't punish Dad too hard." I said evenly, "I'm not punishing, I'm protecting." The bracelet story from Teresa was a ghost I kept folded in my pocket. I would not use that ghost unless someone called me a liar at the table. That reserve would stay in my back pocket like a card I didn't want to play but might have to. Then Mom texted, "Please don't bring that video, it's family." The message was heavy with shame and a request to sweep things back under the rug. Translation: Our last safe option, quiet correction, family privacy, has been removed. I typed back, "I'm bringing proof. It will be calm." She sent a thumbs down emoji that pinched like a small, resentful child who'd lost a game. The gesture made the situation clearer. They were trying to control how the truth landed, not whether it landed at all. I told Lily plainly, "If anyone raises their voice at you, we leave immediately." She asked, small and smart. "Even Grandma?" I said, "especially Grandma." The truth is louder when it's attached to old loyalties, and Mom's allegiance to the family story had always had the most weight. I packed earplugs for Lily in case voices spiked and sensory overwhelm started. Sometimes protection is about ears as much as it is about rules. I moved the car to street parking facing away from their driveway and set my bag by the door so we could leave in a breath. The last of the quiet negotiation had been taken away from me. That clarified my path. Saturday night, Dad posted a photo of his stamp binder on the club's social page with a caption that was more performance than pride. "Family dramas aside, pride in a collection endures." The post was polished like the lemon sheen on their porch, calm on the surface and a jab underneath. That small, chilly public flourish accelerated the clock. It made Sunday not just about truth but about ending his performance. Once a story's out there on a page, it takes on a life that will chew at a kid's reputation, and I had less time than I'd thought. I set 3 alarms for Sunday: 10 a.m. to check clothes and do the final mental run-through, 11:30 to eat something that wouldn't make me jittery, and 12:30 to leave. I walked through the route from the dining room to the front door in my head, 2 turns, 1 rug, 1 step down, then out, until each footfall felt known. I checked the boundaries letters again, feeling the paper edges between my fingers. The tape on the stamp sleeve was unbroken, Arthur's receipt was signed, and beneath it, I rehearsed my opening line over and over until it felt less like a speech and more like a simple instruction. "I'm going to show you something, then I'm going to return something, then I'm leaving." Sitting down that night in the quiet, I made the decision about where I would sit. I would place myself directly opposite Dad at the head of the table. Posture matters when power is on the line. A low, slow breath, shoulders down, implies implacability. I chose to sit across from him so our eyes would meet when necessary and so I could watch silently where his attention went. Brooke would sit to Dad's right. That was deliberate. I wanted one person beside him who knew the truth and could feel the pressure without needing to yell. Lily would be to my left where I could pass her the stress ring under the table. Tyler would have a seat between Brooke and Mom, but he would not be the center of the room. The center would be the truth I brought. I resolved not to use Aunt Teresa's bracelet evidence unless someone called me a liar. That photo and tiny clasp were a nuclear option. They'd prove pattern, not just the single theft, but I promised myself to keep it in reserve. If they refused to accept the shop receipt, the security clip, and the repayment proof, only then would I expose the longer, uglier history. It felt savage to even consider it, but protection asks for hard choices. I pre-committed to leaving at 45 minutes no matter what. My phone's vibration would be my cue. The moment it buzzed, I would stand, take Lily's hand, and walk out whether the room agreed to my terms or not. That rule kept me honest. I would state my consequences and follow them. I decided to say nothing about the canceled money until after the video. Facts first, consequences second. I wanted no room for negotiations spun by guilt or tears. I told Lily she didn't have to say anything. She could stare at her plate, roll the stress ring, or doodle in the margin. She didn't need to watch anybody's face. I told Brooke to sit next to Dad so he'd have at least one soft landing. I was not there to destroy him. I was there to stop him from making a child feel like a criminal. I packed tissues for Brooke and a small bottle of water for Tyler because anger is often performed but grief is quiet. The plan was impossible and precise. We would show the proof, return the stamps, articulate the boundaries, and walk away into a smaller, truer life. When I finally closed the door on the apartment that night, the little sticky note under my phone glowed in the lamplight. Don't explain, show. I tapped my pen 3 times against my tablet case, 3 slow, deliberate taps, and breathed. The lemon-polished world I was about to step into would expect spectacle. I would give them instead an unadorned record. The stakes felt enormous in my chest, but beneath that, a steady river of clarity. Protect Lily, no matter the cost. I lay awake for hours the night before, the house moving around me in small, familiar sounds. The refrigerator's soft click, Lily's muffled breathing through the cracked door, a distant car on the street. My mind ran like a clock with too many hands. I made tea at 2 in the morning, held the warm mug with both hands, and watched steam ghost up into the dark. I opened the boundaries letter again and read it out loud to the empty room, simple lines, plain language, my rules. It felt heavier when I said it into the air. Was it too much? I asked the question like a prayer, and then I thought of the bench, of Lily curled up under that blue metal cold, and the answer came without argument. No, not too much. Aunt Teresa texted back 2 words when I wrote, nerves. She wrote, you're ready. Her words are like a hand on my shoulder, small and steady. I thought about the money I'd pulled, the $1,250 a month, the $189 phone plan, the $6,000 I'd tucked away for school, and how much had been carried quietly so their lights would stay on. I felt the cost under my skin. It stung and also felt like medicine. I pictured the savings account I'd labeled Lily First Car and the trip I'd moved to Teresa, and I knew the balances of my life were shifting in a way I could live with. I almost called Mom to cancel the lunch and mail the evidence instead. It would have been safer. It would have kept the door closed and kept the noise outside. But the thought of Lily learning that truth could be hidden by distance made my throat tighten. I couldn't teach her that hiding was the answer. I chose instead to sleep on the couch like a sentry 2 doors away, so I would be the first face she saw in the morning. I tapped my pen 3 times against my tablet case, slow, even, and let that be a promise to myself. Whatever happened the next day, I would keep my voice calm and my feet steady. I would protect my child. Morning arrived with a brittle sun and a stomach full of tea. At 10:30, Brooke texted with 2 short words that landed like a brick. Tyler wiped. He'd cleaned his phone. The neat digital trail I'd hoped for had a hole now. My chest tightened for a second, and then I breathed because holes can be patched with other things. At 11:05, Arthur texted back, yes, use my name if needed, but don't post the clip online. That was better than nothing. I replied thanks and saved his message like a small legal anchor. Plain paper proof matters in families like mine. At 11:40, Dad sent a curt 1-line instruction, be brief. He was trying to own the clock. I liked clocks, so I set mine. My printer jammed when I tried to print an extra copy of the Boundaries letter. I fixed it with hands that trembled just a little, and the corner of the page stayed wrinkled. Imperfection belongs to real life, and the wrinkle felt right in that way. Lily spilled tea on her sweater at noon and had to change. Those small delays felt huge, but they also kept me human. I couldn't find the index card with my 3 aims: clear Lily, return the stamps, state conditions, so I wrote them again from memory and felt steadier for doing it. In the mirror, I said to my face, loud enough to be heard, "We don't leave the room without speaking the truth." Saying that out loud anchored me. I was more frightened of letting her down than of any argument. We left the apartment 2 minutes after I wanted to because life is clumsy and true. We parked 2 houses down at 12:58. I put my hand over Lily's and she squeezed back twice. That small pressure was a language of its own. It said, "I'm with you and I'm not going to let go." I checked the stamp sleeve's seal one last time. The tape was intact. My initials across the tape looked small but permanent. Proof doesn't need to perform, it just needs to be undeniable. I told Lily again that she didn't have to say anything. She smiled a private, tired smile and said, "I know." Her voice was small and steady like a boat's bell. She twisted the stress ring in her fingers, the same one she'd used to calm herself on the bench. I tucked my tablet under my arm and rehearsed my opening sentence in the car. "I'm going to show you something, then I'm going to return something, then we're leaving." That rhythm kept panic out of my larynx. Walking up the 3 steps, the lemon polish hit me first, the clean, cloying smell of their life presented as perfect. The door opened before I could knock. Mom's face was the same calm mask, the one that told me she'd already picked a side. The dining room smelled like roast chicken and the table was set with Mom's good plates. I moved quickly, placing the place cards like a small field map. I sat opposite Dad with Lily to my left. Brooke sat to Dad's right. Tyler had a seat, his navy jacket draped over the chair back like a silent flag. I set my tote at my feet, tablet on top, the sealed sleeve under it, and the white envelope with Arthur's receipt tucked into the side pocket. My hands felt lighter when everything was in reach. Mom began with, "Let's pray," and I bowed my head out of habit and respect for rituals. I'm not there to fight customs, I'm there to fix outcomes and to speak truth into a room that tends to avoid it. When the plates landed, the air smelled like chicken and lemon and the pressure was a physical thing in the room. I looked at each person's face, Dad already tight, the color in his cheeks dwindling, Brooke's lip trembling. Tyler's shoulders hunched like a child trying to disappear. I said quietly, "Before we eat, I'm going to show you something, then I'm going to return something, then we're leaving." Dad opened his mouth, ready likely to protest, but I lifted a hand. "Please wait until the video ends." My thumb found the tablet's screen. I pressed play. The room held its breath. Arthur's security clip blinked to life. The timestamp was clear, 4:21 p.m. The silhouette moved across the frame, a tall, thin shape in a navy jacket with the white stripe down the sleeve. The movement was ordinary, hands near a counter, a small box exchanged, cash slid across a surface. It was not cinematic, not grand, it was the small, unremarkable trading of things for quick money. Brooke's hand flew to her mouth. Tyler's eyes squeezed shut. Mom's mouth worked and no sound came. Dad went colorless, as if someone had pulled the blood out of him to make a point. When the clip ended, I slid the white envelope with Arthur's signed receipt next to the tablet. It was a small, clean rectangle of paper. I let the silence sit for a beat like a thinking person should. Then I said, steady and plain, "On Wednesday at 4:21 p.m., this lot of 6 was sold to Arthur Blake for $500. I bought them back at 9:15 a.m. Friday." I reached into the folder and slid the clear plastic sleeve with the 6 stamps across the table toward Dad. The pane of plastic caught the light and made the stamps look smaller than they must have seemed in Dad's binder. The receipt was taped under the sleeve where anyone could see it. Brooke put her head in her hands and whispered, "I'm sorry," like it was a small, fragile thing she wanted to protect. Tyler offered a whisper that barely left the inside of his cheeks. "I'm sorry." He didn't look up. The words existed and I heard them, but I didn't make Lily accept them. Mom's voice came out tight and sharp. "You didn't have to make a spectacle." I met her eyes evenly. I made a record, I said. Records last longer than speeches. Lily squeezed my hand under the table and I passed her the stress ring without looking at anyone. She rolled it between her thumb and forefinger, steady, and didn't have to look up. I didn't say, "I told you so," because that doesn't heal anything. Proof does. The sleeve sat upright between us until Dad reached out, hands shaking, and slid it toward himself. The physical motion of his hand taking it felt like a hinge moving on an old door. The room's energy shifted from accusation to something that looked a lot like stunned realization. I kept my voice soft and precise and waited for the next breath everyone would take. I placed the boundaries letters in front of Mom, Dad, and Brooke like a small, plain offering of facts. Each envelope was simple. One page, my signature at the bottom. I slid them across the table so they couldn't miss them. I kept my voice even. Any contact with us requires a written apology to Lily, signed by each of you, and an agreement never to single her out again. The room was the kind of quiet that holds a breath, waiting to see if the person will change shape. I added the cost. Financial support ends today, the monthly transfers stop, the phone plan I've been covering is cut, and the college set-aside I planned for next year is canceled. I said it plainly because money is how some families keep control. I wanted the consequence to be clear and immediate, not a threat shaped with anger. The trip I saved as a surprise, $8,500, has been redirected to Aunt Teresa as a $9,800 cruise because she was the one who stood up for me. Mom's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Dad's face had lost color, like someone had opened a window in his chest. I looked at Tyler, who was small and flattened in his chair. "You will not speak to Lily unless it's to apologize in writing," I told him. "No texts. No jokes, no excuses." His shoulders were tight. Brooke produced a sound like a sob and clutched her napkin. I felt that mixture of pity and hardness in my ribcage. This was not about punishment for a child as much as it was about teaching a family to protect the young. I glanced at my watch. 42 minutes had passed. I let the silence do some work. Dad tried to pull me back with, "You've always been dramatic," and the old part of me wanted to snap with all the sharp words I'd learned to swallow. I breathed through it. I let the line pass me like wind. My phone buzzed. 45 minutes. I stood, offered Lily my hand, and said, "We're done." She rose like someone who had been holding her breath and needed to step into fresh air. I nodded to Brooke, who was crying with the letter in her fist, and to Mom, whose mouth opened and closed like someone searching for a place to put her words. Dad sat staring at the sleeve in his hands, colorless. We walked out together, the small door chime ringing 2 soft notes behind us. For a moment, the lemon polish smell and roast chicken stayed in the doorway like a stage set that no longer fit us. We left the stage and walked away. Monday morning, I moved the money where it would serve someone who had actually earned my trust. I logged into my bank and confirmed the transfers were canceled. The recurring $1,250 that had been slipping out of my account each month stopped. I removed Mom, Dad, and Brooke from the family phone plan I paid for. The monthly bill they no longer received would free up the $189 each month for Lily. I deleted the $6,000 I had planned to hold for Brooke's older child's college fund. I didn't take pleasure in that. I planned to speak with Brooke privately about what restitution might look like for her family once Tyler made things right. I moved the $8,500 I had meant for their anniversary into a new savings account labeled Teresa, thank you. I sent an email with the confirmation and later called Teresa to say, "It's booked. Check your email." Her voice on the phone was bright and startled in the best way. She sent back a string of exclamation points, "And you always were the brave one." I smiled and felt the heavy relief of putting generosity where it would be used for kindness. I printed and saved screenshots of every canceled transaction and filed them in a small folder behind my boundaries letter. I forwarded Brooke a private note that said, simply, "We can talk about school help for your oldest after Tyler apologizes to Lily and starts doing restitution jobs." I wasn't closing my door out of spite. I was asking for basic responsibility. I emailed Mom and Dad a clean digital copy of the boundaries letter and left it at that. The family group chat that used to be filled with small daily noises went silent, like someone had muted the house. The cost now sat on the table for everyone to see. A few days later, I met Henry Abbott in the Stamp Club lobby. He was a small, square man with a kind throat for facts. I handed him a neat packet. The receipt from Arthur, the timeline PDF, and a copy of the printed correction he'd read from the podium. He took it carefully as if it were glass. "I'm sorry for the talk that started," he said, his voice soft and honest. "It stopped on my watch." He promised to post a short errata in the club bulletin, and I gave him the exact sentence I wanted printed. A correction the granddaughter did not steal. The items were recovered by the family. He nodded and promised he'd keep it simple and out of gossip. On my way out, 2 older members gave me a quick, steady nod. One said, "Good for the girl," like a small benediction. That meant more than I expected. It felt like a public exhale. I declined Henry's polite offer to join the club. I wasn't there to belong. I was there to close the loop and keep my daughter safe. I emailed the exact correction sentence to Mrs. Beck and to Jenna and told them to spread it calmly where they heard the rumor. Truth deserved consistency and repetition until it settled. Later that week, I took Aunt Teresa to a small Italian place for lunch. The sunlight came through the window, warm and forgiving. I handed her the cruise confirmation and watched her face rearrange itself with shock and joy. She laughed and cried at the same time. "You're the one adult who stood between me and their story more than once," I told her. "This is me standing with you." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand and then told one more memory about the bracelet. She said how our mom had looked at me that day instead of the truth because it was easier to keep the family picture tidy. Teresa promised to send Lily postcards from every port with 2-word blessings. The first would say, "Keep shining." We clinked water glasses because we didn't need wine to make a toast that mattered. On the drive home, she tapped her fingers on the dash to the oldies station I'd played, and I felt the soft landing of being with someone who knew the real story. A week after the lunch, I walked up Mom and Dad's porch with a sealed envelope in my hand. Inside was a clean copy of the club correction packet, one more copy of the boundaries letter, and a short note that said, "Protect Lily or lose us." I tucked a small photo of Lily's empty bench into the envelope and wrote on the back, "We choose warmth now." The lemon polish smelled the same as always. That familiar, clean smell felt like a mask. I rang the bell and stepped back. The door opened. Mom stood there with her mouth slightly open. Dad was behind her, pale and quiet. Mom opened her mouth as if she might say something and then closed it. Silence is finally the right sound sometimes. I nodded once, small and final, and turned away. The soft door chime rang 2 notes, and I did not look back. I walked to the car, slid into the driver's seat, and felt the thin, clean line of the choice I'd made. Lily texted 2 words, "Pie." I typed back, "Pie," and a heart. If you've lived through anything like this, tell me your story in the comments. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And if this helped you, please share it and keep watching more stories on the channel.